Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going through the wheel settings I use and the assists I use and the assists you should be using in order to set the fastest lap times you can on Gran Turismo Sport. So let's go into options, controllers. So the wheel I use is the Logitech G29 and this is the button layout that I use. I use the directional pads, or the directional pad for the MFD. I find it the easiest way to adjust the MFD while I'm driving. And then over here we've got triangle for windscreen wipers. Don't really use those that much, if I'm being honest. Square button to change view. I use cockpit view while I'm driving. X button for the rear view, and the circle button for the overtake. I'm not sure how many cars have the overtake button. I've been doing the daily races at Laguna Seca this week and using the Super Formula cars, and they've got an overtake button, and circle is probably the best button to use as it's the fastest one you can access while you're driving. Here we've got L2 button and R2 button as the indicators, and then we've got R3 as flash headlights and L3 as hazard lights. You can use this little dial to adjust the MFD, but I prefer to just use the directional buttons. I find it a little bit easier, and sometimes with the dial I end up changing the settings by a little bit too much while I'm driving. Right, force feedback, one that a lot of people ask about. The settings I use are 4 and 5. The steering sensitivity doesn't really matter if you're using a wheel because that is based on the controller, and I haven't used this game with a controller, so I can't really give you any indicator of what you should use for that. The force feedback max torque is how heavy the wheel feels essentially, and the force feedback sensitivity is how quickly you start to feel resistance. So if you're driving down a straight and you start to move the wheel to the left or the right, the higher that setting is, the more you feel the resistance very quickly. If the setting's a bit lower, it takes a little bit longer to start to feel that resistance. So 4 and 5 is what I prefer. I find that with the torque on 4, so it's a little bit lighter, I can sometimes catch the back end a little bit quicker if it starts to step out. Sometimes having the wheel a little bit heavier does feel nice, but I feel like I'm a little bit faster with these settings. So assists, gears, manual. You want to be driving with manual gears. If you haven't, or you're not driving with manual gears already, I would definitely recommend spending some time to get used to it, because it will be the quickest way to improve your lap times. Tyres are obviously determined by the race you're entering and the regulations. The softest compound is generally what you want to be on. There are some rare cases where the harder tyre can be a better choice, but generally you want to be on the softest tyre for as long as you can. Traction control, we have that set as 0. 0 is going to be the fastest in pretty much all cars. The exception being maybe if it's raining and you've got a car that has a rear-wheel drive and is very, very loose at the back. If you're struggling to control the car, you might want to put that up a little bit. If it prevents you spinning, then it's probably going to be important, but having it on 0 is the fastest option. The other assists are all going to be off, except for ABS on default. Default ABS seems to be the fastest setting to have. If you watch any of the top 16 Superstar races, you'll see that they all have the ABS indicator lighting up when they're braking. I think the other options you can lock up quite easily, and you end up with big slides and lose a lot of lap time. So default is definitely the best way to be fast on this game. So if you're doing the races to be competitive and be fast, you want to have that left on default. The other thing I would mention is the driving line assist. Sometimes if you're learning a new circuit you've never driven before, it might be worth putting that on to learn the circuit, but when you're racing I find it quite distracting, so you probably just want to have that off. Right, brake balance you can see there. I've got that quite set towards the rear. This is a front engine car, so it ends up being a little bit understeery, so I like to have the brake bias a little bit more towards the rear. Generally you want to adjust this based on the car you're driving, maybe the tyres you're on as well, and just how the car feels as you're driving it. So if you find you're getting a lot of understeer, you want to move that more towards the rear. If you find you're getting oversteer, you want to move that more towards the front. Just bear in mind that having it towards the rear will, as you're racing, probably increase the tyre wear on the rear a little bit, and if you're moving that to the front, you might increase the tyre wear on the front as well. So during the race I will tend to adjust it as I go along based on how the balance is feeling as I'm driving and the tyre wear as well. The other thing I do is use this radar view most of the time when I'm racing with the cockpit view, purely because it tells you when someone's dive bombing up your inside. Some of the cars don't have the best mirrors in cockpit view, so it's very, very useful to have the radar on. The other thing to also keep an eye on is the fuel level. When you're racing, you don't want to be running out of fuel during a race. Generally what I do to save fuel is just short shift a little bit rather than putting it in a different mode. I find I'm probably a little bit faster by short shifting strategically around the lap than running a whole lap in fuel mode 2 or 3, for example. The last thing I'm going to touch on is the cockpit view adjustments. So I like to have my cockpits as far forward as possible, just to maximise the windscreen space on my television screen. I use a 55-inch TV and I sit quite close to it, so it's probably one of the reasons I get on with cockpit view quite well. A lot of people say that you're faster in some of the other views, maybe the bonnet camera, for example, but I think, you know, whatever view you get used to driving, as long as you put enough practice in, you can be just as fast. The height I adjust based on where my wheel is in real life and where the wheel is on the game, so I try to line them up so they kind of match from my personal field of view. So that's kind of what I do there. I think that's just about everything. If you have any questions about today's video, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.